You had said that while we read, we create a lot of speed breakers. It's like moving on a road with too many speed breakers, which eventually reduces our speed. So please explain the method and science behind this and how we can improve this.
The thing is that when we are reading, the eyes are basically just an instrument that is conveying all the information to the brain, right? So at the end of the day, the eyes are kind of your medium or your channel to convey that information, but ultimately the processing is happening in your brain. So if you are using your cognitive abilities to comprehend text better, then that is obviously going to increase your efficiency. That is going to improve your speed while you read. Rather than read every single word, what you do is you chunk the sentence. So instead of reading one word at a time, you read 3 or 4 words at a time so that you go through that sentence more quickly. And this is something that you can do with practice, and you have to train your eyes to move more fluidly across the page. So for example, what happens is, in this image there is a fixation point that is there, right? So around the fixation point you can see about 4 to 5 letters. Fixation point is
Fixation
that
point where is
particular point.
four. I can see four very clearly.
Yes, exactly. So you can see four very clearly because you have focused your eyes on that particular word. So that is absolutely clear to you. But that does not mean that the words around it are completely blocked out. You can still see them, right? So that
Yes.
is what your central vision and peripheral vision is. Central is
Right.
what you're focused on, and peripheral is everything around it, which is a little bit blurred, not too clear. But if you can train yourself to use that peripheral vision, because it is wider than your central vision, you will be able to process more information with a single glance. So what you do is, now this is going to sound a little bit abstract, which is why there's a very good technique for this as well. What you do is, if you have an image of a text in front of you, right? So you can focus on the point right above it. So there is that white space that is there. So instead of reading those actual words, you look at the white space that is just above, was followed by that of the Parthians, right? So there is that white space. So you focus on that. That is in your central vision, and that will allow you to see 3 or 4 words of the sentence that is right underneath, because the sentence then is in your peripheral vision, not in your central vision. So this is something that has been found to increase reading speed by over 300% by a PX project that was carried out in 1998. It makes your reading more fluid, and it's kind of like you said, it's like reducing speed breakers.
Now, guys, let
Right.
me take you through a very practical demonstration. Now, those of you who are really interested in increasing your reading speed, pause the video for a while and first read the given paragraph in your normal flair, जो भी आपकी आदत है हमेशा पढ़ने की. Use a stopwatch. Stopwatch सबके फोन में होती है, टाइमर होता है, and count the time required. Now, अगली बार दूसरी बार उसको पढ़ो, but taking दिव्यानीज पॉइंट्स इनटू कंसिडरेशन. जैसे हमारी जो हमेशा की आदत होती है, यहाँ पर पार्थियंस एंशंट एनसीईआरटी का ये पैराग्राफ है और यहाँ पर लिखा हुआ है द शाका domination in northwestern India was followed by that of the Parthians, and in many ancient Indian Sanskrit texts the two people. इस तरीके से हम आगे जा रहे हैं. ठीक है. Based on what Devyani has scientifically mentioned, chunk of words को consider करना है एक बार में, rather than focusing on those singular words. ठीक है. Chunking करते हुए आगे बढ़ना है. Count the time required. And guys, even if you are able to save a few seconds behind this singular paragraph, that means you are cumulatively saving a lot more time in the entire chapter, even more time cumulatively in the entire book. And given the humongous amount of reading and comprehension that you have to do as CSE aspirants, you are saving a lot of time, you are saving a lot of effort behind your reading and comprehension. So let's quickly move ahead, assuming that you paused the video and you did this activity. The next thing that you had mentioned, Devyani, was about avoiding regressions. And you had used this analogy of moving in a car with no reverse gear. Okay? Please explain the science and method behind it.
Right. So visual regression is basically, कभी कभी ऐसा होता है कि हम कुछ पढ़ रहे हैं और हमें ऐसे लगता है कि समझ नहीं आया, दोबारा से पढ़ते हैं. We go back to that sentence that we've already read. So what happens is when you read the same words over and over again in that particular sentence or that paragraph, but you're not getting anything out of it. आप कुछ comprehend नहीं कर पा रहे हो, but you're reading it again and again. And the thing is that that breaks your flow, that interrupts your comprehension as well. And there are some studies which indicate that for some people who are in this habit of visual regression, it can waste up to 1/3 of their reading time. So if this is something that you learn to avoid, you can save up to 30 or 40% of your time. You can increase your reading speed by that much. So if you find yourself that you feel like going back to the sentence you've already read, try not to do that. And for that, you can just remind yourself that no, I have to move forward. And a very practical way to do so is you can use your finger as a tracker. So the sentence that you're reading, keep following that sentence with your finger, or you can use a pen with the cap on. So you can track that sentence with the pen. It sounds like it's something that a child would do, but this is actually very effective because it helps you concentrate. You know that your finger is moving across that sentence, so your brain gets less distracted, right? And it also helps keep your brain on toes, because it's like you're telling your mind that I'm not going back to the sentence. So you are also kept on your toes and you're able to gain maximum from whatever you are reading. So it helps you focus, it helps sustain your concentration. And it's kind of like, I mean, if you had to think about it, it's like if you're getting in a car and you're driving and then you keep putting in the reverse gear, you keep reversing, then you're not really making that much progress. So think of it like that. So backtracking or revisiting is like that. So instead, what we can do is use these simple methods, the pen or the finger, to track or to pace yourself.
Fine, fine, guys. Again, do pause your video and try to do it this way. And just to add a point, Ms. Devyani will be doing same hand holding as part of the prelims initiative that we are going to launch. She will be conducting the brain booster sessions to help you guys enhance your productivity. Now, this is about reading speed, but other aspects of your preparation, be it comprehension, be it handling anxiety, and so on. Productivity आपके कैसे बढ़ानी है, she'll be taking care of. So guys, यहाँ पर practical sense में अगर देखें, if I am reading this and after moving halfway to the paragraph, if I am finding the need to go back, I will have to stop myself. Say for example, मैंने यहाँ से पढ़ना शुरू, यहाँ तक आ गया हूँ और आगे पढ़ रहा हूँ. In fact, they ruled over this country on parallel lines for some time. Originally, the Parthians lived in Iran, from where they moved to India. In comparison with the Greeks and the Shakas, they occupied only a small portion of northwestern India in the 1st century. अब मुझे वो अर्ज हो रही है कि मैं वापस जाऊं और इस सेंटेंस को पहले पढूं. But I will not go back. I will keep moving ahead because the only way out is moving ahead. यहाँ तक मैं आ गया, आगे बढ़ रहा हूं. The most famous Parthian king was Gondophares, in whose region St. Thomas is said to have so and so. So, थोड़ी देर के लिए tentatively, it's creating that mental tension in my mind कि I'm missing out on something, I'm losing out on something. मैंने जो पढ़ा है मैं ठीक से समझ नहीं पाया हूँ. But with time, as Ms. Devyani had said in her notes, he had shared her notes, कि with time your brain gets trained to read faster, comprehend faster, and the need to regress gets minimized over time. The next thing that you had mentioned was previewing the content. That creates mental schema in our mind. And it's almost like the analogy that you had presented was before going into the jungle. Like if you go into the jungle without having any information, you are completely in the dark. You don't know what kind of animals you are going to encounter. But if you take down a list and if you see the map or see the list of animals that you may encounter in the jungle, you will be more mentally prepared. Okay? So please explain the science and method behind it.
Right. So previewing is something that is very helpful because what happens is when you are reading something, it is helpful if you can just look through the headings, the subheadings, something that is given in bold, the images, the graphs, whatever illustrations are there in that chapter. So so in some books actually there are previews given. There are a lot of books which have previews, and it's written that in this chapter you will learn, and then there are a few pointers given. So you can use that ready-made preview. You can go through the preview. You can go through the chapter to arrive at that preview yourself. And the point of it is that it creates a mental framework, the headings, the subheadings. It gives you an idea of what you are going to encounter in this chapter. And there's a very interesting concept behind this actually. So this is called a schema, and a schema is, like you said, it's a mental map, right? So what happens is whatever information we have, it is organized in our brain in the form of a schema. And unlike a computer, our brain is not really very conducive to this thing ki you can just write files, right? In a computer, whatever you want to write, you write it. It doesn't matter कि आपके computer में पहले से क्या files हैं. It's not going to make any difference. You write a new file and that's fine. In our brain, however, it works differently. What you need to do is you need to integrate new information with information that is already there. So when you preview the chapter, you are allowing yourself to form those headings, those subheadings. And when you read that actual chapter, what will happen is वो information वहां slot होती जाएगी, right?
You had
So
used this term of activation of prior knowledge.
right. So your prior knowledge is activated because the preview has given you some amount of knowledge. Now that becomes your prior knowledge when you go through the chapter, and it immediately activates your prior knowledge. Immediately you know that, okay, this information goes here, that information goes here. It is easy for you to categorize, to understand the material more effectively. And it is something that enhances cognitive economy. So cognitive economy is basically when you are using your cognition very efficiently. You're spending less time, you're spending less energy, your speed is enhanced, right? So that is cognitive economy. So the information that is stored in our brain, it is stored in the form of neural connections. It's not as if that entire sentence is going into my mind,
Right,
right?
right.
There
In
are
your in your
neural
in your
connections.
notes, you had also mentioned about the example of an American folk story, right?
Yes.
The research conducted by a particular scholar.
So this was actually Frederick Bartlett, and he is the one who coined the word schema. In 1932, he did this research study. So what he did was he took a folk story, American folk story, and he presented that story to the participants of his study, who were American citizens, and they were not from that folk culture. They were regular urban residents. And some of the components of that
Okay.
story, कुछ जो folk components थे और कुछ ऐसे components थे जो उन्हें relatable लग सकते थे, जो उनके culture में थे. So
Okay.
what was found was कि over a period of time, जो चीजें उन participants को याद रही, वो चीजें थी जो already उनके लिए कहीं ना कहीं familiar थी, उनके culture में थी. जो entirely folk elements थे, जो उनके culture में बिल्कुल भी नहीं थे, वो धीरे धीरे उनकी मेमोरी से फेड अवे हो गए, बिकॉज उनके पास कोई प्रायर इंफॉर्मेशन ही नहीं थी उन चीजों को लेकर, उन एलिमेंट्स को लेकर. तो वो उस इंफॉर्मेशन को कहीं पर भी कैटेगराइज नहीं कर पाए, एंड दैट इज व्हाई दैट इंफॉर्मेशन वाज लॉस्ट.
So because there was no activation of prior knowledge, so retention was poor, comprehension was poor. That's the gist
राइट.
of the story, gist of the
यस.
research. Fine. Fine. Now, guys, let me take you through the practical aspect. Miss देवयानी ने तो theoretical aspect बता ही दिया इस मेथड का, इसके पीछे की साइंस बता दी, थोड़ा सा practicality भी आप समझते हैं. This is ancient history NCERT. Topic is central Asian contacts and their results. Preview करना है, ठीक है. मेंटल स्कीमा बनाना है, मेंटल मैप बनाना है. देखते हैं कि मेंटल मैप किस तरीके से बन पाता है. Assuming कि we are not reading this book, this chapter for the first time. देखते हैं क्या मैप बन पाता है हमारे माइंड में. द फर्स्ट टॉपिक इज द इंडो ग्रीक्स. अब इंडो ग्रीक्स के बारे में मैंने जो जो पढ़ रखा है वो मेरे माइंड में रीइंफोर्स होना शुरू हो गया है. यहां पर मैं देख पा रहा हूं कि इंडो ग्रीक कॉइन्स. सो वी आर फोकसिंग ऑन हेडिंग्स, सब हेडिंग्स, इलस्ट्रेशंस, बोल्ड. बोल्ड अगर कुछ किया हुआ है, आइटलाइज्ड में अगर लिखा हुआ है, राइट, मेंटल मैप उससे बना रहे हैं. सो इंडो ग्रीक कॉइन्स, yes, I have read about Indo-Greek coins, their minting methods, and the use of gold, that is being activated, reinforced. मैं आगे जैसे बढ़ रहा हूँ, second page. Now this trajectory, the movement of the Indo-Greek power, the Central Asian powers and their interaction with India, northwestern frontier से, again that information, that visual memory is being reinforced. आगे बढ़ रहा हूँ next page पर. Here I can see a copper plate inscription. So again shakas के context में मैंने copper plate inscription के बारे में पढ़ रखा है. Now this has been found near Taxila. Again reinforcement हो रहा है. Moving ahead, here other headings are the Parthians, the Kushans. Again Parthians के context में मैंने पढ़ रखा है, Kushans के context में मैंने पढ़ रखा है. कुशन के prominent king का नाम मेरे दिमाग में फिर से reinforce हो रहा है. कनिष्क का नाम आ रहा है. The same thing goes with Parthians. Moving ahead, यहां पर मैं देख पा रहा हूं कुशंस कॉइन्स. ठीक है, अगेन गुड क्वालिटी कॉइन्स, हाई प्योरिटी ऑफ गोल्ड was found in those coins. ये पढ़ रखा है, ये फिर से reinforce हो रहा है. आगे बढ़ रहे हैं, impact of Central Asian contacts, structures, pottery. अगेन जो जो पढ़ रखा है, सुर्खी एक कीवर्ड का मेरे दिमाग में reinforce हो रहा है. अगेन the distinctive pottery being used, that is being reinforced. Trade and technology अगला सब हेडिंग है. नाउ अगेन शाकास के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में रुद्र दमन का नाम याद आ रहा है. सुदर्शन लेक को रिपेयर किया गया था, वो रीइंफोर्स हो रहा है. अगेन टेक्नोलॉजी की अगर बात करें, सो द कुशंस वर very good. They were the pioneers when it comes to horse riding, using stitched cloth, coats, trousers and so on. Similarly their political setup, next जो highlight है, जो सब हेडिंग है, दैट इज पॉलिटी. उनका पॉलिटिकल सेटअप के बारे में जो पढ़ रखा है, अगेन दैट इज बीइंग रीइंफोर्स्ड. आगे चल रहे हैं, न्यू एलिमेंट कौन कौन से आए थे, रिलीजन की अगर बात करें या फिर महायाना बुद्धिज्म की अगर बात करें. सो दिस वाज द पॉइंट व्हेन image of Gautam Buddha was started to be revered, to be worshipped. Again that is getting reinforced just by reading the subheadings. Gandhara art, again Gandhara art is a big topic in itself. काफी कुछ पढ़ रखा है इसके बारे में, reinforce हो रहा है. Image of Buddha from Gandhar, then sculpture from Mathura. Mathura art के बारे में भी काफी कुछ पढ़ रखा है. Again that is getting reinforced, and this is happening in fraction of seconds, subconsciously बिना पता होते हुए. That mental map is getting reinforced. आगे सांची स्तूपा, मल्टीपल क्वेश्चंस आ चुके हैं मेंस में भी, प्रीलिम्स में भी. जो भी पढ़ा है सांची स्तूपा के बारे में, फ्लैश ऑफ अ सेकंड में रीइंफोर्स होना शुरू हो गया. मूविंग अहेड, अ पैनल फ्रॉम बारहुत, साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में पढ़े. अगेन यहाँ पर सिल्वर कॉइन्स. साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी की कॉन्टेक्स्ट में व्हाट इज गेटिंग रीइंफोर्स्ड इज द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ आषाढ़ी और औषधि, चरक संहिता, सुश्रुत संहिता. अगेन contemporary जो scholars थे, that is getting reinforced. So this is how that mental map, that schema is being formed just by previewing the content that we are going to read. ठीक है, was it on the right track, Devyani, or would you want to add something on this, on the practical aspect?
No, sir, it was completely on the right track.
All right, fine. So the next thing that you had shared, Devyani, was scanning, where you had said that we focus on the narrow aspects, जहां पर आपने annotations के ऊपर ज्यादा emphasize किया था. प्लीज इसके पीछे का साइंस और मेथड बताओ.
Right. So scanning is basically when you are reading very quickly because you want to find a specific piece of information, right? So you already know what you're looking for and then you scan the text for it. So obviously it is very quick and it allows you to locate very specific details that you know are important in that particular paragraph, in that particular chapter. And so scanning is something that you can use when you are making your own annotations. So just say if you have an entire paragraph and you have made your own annotations there, those annotations are what you will be looking for instead of going through that entire paragraph. That will speed up the entire process. And of course, let's not forget कि जब हमने खुद की annotations की हैं, so there is also an added effect of self-generation effect. What you have generated on your own is anyways retained better. And on top of it, you are using the scanning technique to quickly find that information only. And you are not wasting your time reading every single word of the paragraph, of the page, of the chapter. So it's a very good revision tool that you can use. Right. And it is one of the techniques that we use in flexible reading. So somebody who can scan and skim is called a flexible reader. So scanning is a very important technique in that sense. And
Okay.
also it is something that you can link to PYQs. So if you already know that
Mhm.
from this particular page or from this particular chapter, these are the questions that have been asked previously, this is something that is important that might be asked, so you scan the chapter, you scan the page according to that information, keeping that question in your mind that this is what you're looking for.
Yeah, so even in my preparation days, I used to use this particular technique of scanning, and my books used to be heavily annotated. रिवीजन के टाइम पे बस उन्हीं annotations पर नजर जाती थी और चैप्टर याद हो जाता था. Right.
Right.
Again, the next thing that you have mentioned is about skimming, and you had mentioned that it's akin to crossing hurdles and opposed to scanning that we have seen, where we go for narrow information, we look for narrow information, our own annotations. While skimming, we look for broad information and we try to get a broad overview of the text, of the content, or of the chapter. Please tell the science behind this.
Right. So skimming is basically when you're just trying to get a general idea of the content, you are not focusing on every detail. In scanning, you have already looked for the details that were important. You've already looked for those details. Ki, okay, यहाँ से question आता है, so I will focus on this detail and I'll try to find it. Skimming में you are trying to get a gist, you're trying to get a general idea. You can go with the first and the last sentence of that particular paragraph. You can use that first wala technique to move your eyes swiftly, and then you focus on the first and the last sentence, which often contain the most comprehensible elements. So it is like the introduction of the paragraph and the conclusion. So there are a lot of times when you can get the gist from those two sentences only, especially in books like NCRTs, where the books have been written for school students. So in these kind of books, it's actually very useful, and you can just skip over examples, you can skip over detailed explanations, which you can revisit later if you want to. So this is very useful for revision, this is very useful if you want to finalize your book list or something. So in those areas it's very useful. And the principle behind it, the scientific principle behind it, is called top down processing. So this is a concept that was coined by Richard Gregory in 1970, and he was a psychologist, of course. He basically said that in this process, what you're doing is you're using your prior information and your expectations to interpret new information. So, based on the information, the little amount of information that you're getting, you can fill in the details. You can use the context to fill in those details on your own. You don't need to go through every sentence, you don't need to go through every word, every detail, and your mind will kind of use that small amount of information to get a general idea.
या सो यहाँ पर हम क्रक्स समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं एंड द स्टूडेंट्स हु हैव अटेंडेड माय सी साइड सेशंस नो दिस दैट वी यूज दिस पर्टिकुलर मेथड ऑफ स्किमिंग to understand the gist of the passage and mark the correct answer even without having the need to read the entire passage. In fact, UPSC is framing the passages in such a manner that you mark the wrong answer, and skimming as a method helps you to mark the correct answer and increases your accuracy. Moving ahead, the last element that you had mentioned was vertical reading.
Right.
Again, vertical reading is something that I use in my classes while solving the paper. The first glimpse that we take of the paper, vertical reading करना expected होता है ताकि आप क्वेश्चन की डिमांड ब्रॉडली समझ जाओ और उस क्वेश्चन को अटेम्प्ट अभी करना है या बाद के लिए छोड़ना है वो डिसीजन ले लो विद इन अ स्पैन ऑफ 5 सेकंड्स. ठीक है, दैट इज अ प्रैक्टिकल यूटिलिटी दैट वी हैव बीन यूजिंग ऑलरेडी. उसके टेक्निकलिटीज आप बताओ कि इसमें वर्टिकल रीडिंग में व्हाट इज द साइंस एंड थ्योरेटिकल एस्पेक्ट इन्वॉल्व्ड.
So what we do in vertical reading is you scan the text vertically and you capture the key phrases and the ideas without reading every word. So what you can do practically is you can look down the left margin and you can focus on maybe the bold words or the first few words of each paragraph. And you can just quickly identify phrases that are important. And vertical reading is something that, again, it enhances your speed, it enhances your efficiency, good for cognitive economy. And the basic principle behind it is that of cognitive load theory. So cognitive load theory is something that was coined by John Sweller in 1988. And he basically said that working memory is only able to hold a small amount of information. So it has a very limited capacity. So you cannot overload it with information. You have to avoid that. Only then you will be able to maximize your learning. So your working memory is like a memory card. So there's only a limited amount of space that you have. So just try and avoid overloading it. And for that, you use vertical reading, which will be very helpful for you, particularly when you are, not just revising, but also when you are doing CSAT, comprehension, those kind of things. So you can quickly just see what is important, and you can look down the left margin.
Fine. So guys, these were the 6 methods that can help you increase your reading speed up to 3 times, provided that you are ready to put in the hard work and practice, because this will come only through practice. The 6 methods that we have discussed are involving your brain, the cognitive steps of reading, the 3 steps involved in cognitive reading, and not overdoing the first step, which is a mechanical physical step, overusing your eye. ठीक है, उस physical element को minimize करना है, which again increases your speed. Then previewing of content, avoiding visual regression, skimming, scanning, and vertical reading. Guys, based on your comfort level and based on the permutation and combination that work with you, you can use these techniques and try to enhance your speed. Do let us know in the comment section if you have tried to work it practically. If you pause the video, even if you did not pause the video, you can do it now and let us know in the comment section if you found even a slight improvement. अगर आपको slight improvement भी मिला है just by watching the video and doing some rudimentary level of practice, our efforts behind the research and making of this video are totally justified. So on this note, guys, Ms. Devyani and I will be coming up with more productivity boosting videos. Also, as stated earlier, Ms. Devyani will be hand-holding you and helping you enhance your productivity at studies through the brain booster sessions, which will be part of the prelims 2025 initiative. So on this note, guys, thank you for hooking in till the very end.